What's up, everyone? Welcome to the stream. Thanks for watching the VOD. Hope the sound is okay. I've kind of changed stuff around here to try and make stuff look a little better, but yeah, happy holidays. I guess it's past January 1st, so I shouldn't be in this background anymore, but what are you gonna do? So today we are going to be making a third-person game live. And it should be pretty fun. Just trying to get stuff finished up here a little bit. So you'll see if I go over to the project here, the one that we're going to be working with, looks something like this. You'll see that I am going off of the template that I was using in my most recent video, except I've added quite a few systems in here. Quite a few. It's going to help us actually focus on making a game, rather than on some nitpicky little mechanics, though there is quite a bit we're still going to have to make during the stream. And the kind of goal is to make a game that resembles, but obviously isn't, the full version of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So I'm just going to click play here and jump in. You'll see that we have a few AI that just kind of stand there and do nothing. And as I move the character, you'll see that there's actually some target markers coming up here. And that's because I've introduced a bit of a targeting system into the game. And I'll go into how that works once we start to set up other things. But the important thing to note right now is that it's actually dependent on the way that the character is facing, and not on the way that the camera is facing, which isn't necessarily the best idea for a computer-based game. However, in this case, I'm actually moving the character with a controller, and I'm moving the camera with my mouse. And that's because we're actually going to try and mimic the camera system from Ocarina of Time a little bit. And it's going to try to actively follow the character, which means we're not really going to want to rely on the camera for targeting. We're going to want to make sure the character is focused on what we want it to be focused on. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just take a little bit of time to set up an automatic camera. And then we're going to jump into some combat, and finally look more at actually making a complete game. I am still kind of getting used to this whole live streaming thing, so we're starting off a little simple still, and I promise we'll get to something much more interesting than last time. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up the player character. This is the class that the player is controlling right now. If I go over here and open up the world settings, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to extend from that class, so I'm going to go into my blueprints characters here, and you'll see that I also have the one set up for the AI. Nothing too special, they're just standing there and they have the mesh as well set up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend off this player character and create a child blueprint, and I'm going to call this the Ocarina of Time character. And this is just going to do some top level stuff like moving around the camera and not have to worry about having that within the actual basic mechanics of the player itself. And what you're just going to want to do is go over to the world settings, and I need to make sure that it knows that we're using the Ocarina of Time character as well. And so we just want to set up that sort of automatic camera that you see in Ocarina of Time. I don't have my switch capture set up right now. I probably should have done that. Would make things a little easier, but basically as the character moves around here, we just want the camera to follow it. And you might think that it's actually based on like the character's rotation, but it's actually just based on the input. I was doing a bit of research on that, and by research I mean playing the game a lot. But yeah, it just kind of seems to be based on, depending on how far the input is to the right or left, it adds or removes weight, I guess, to how much it moves the camera. And the way that we're going to access moving the camera is actually by setting the control rotation of the controller, which is the easiest way to just do it live during the game. Oh, hey Killer Rex. What game are you planning on making? I'm actually planning on making a game that's similar to Ocarina of Time. It's just going to be like a little minimum viable product thing that I'm setting up here quick. Who knows how far we're going to get, but I've actually got a few components set up as well, so when we get there I'll kind of explain that stuff as well. What kind of game are you working on? VR is pretty exciting for sure. So to be able to get the control rotation, or set the control rotation rather, you actually have to get the player controller. And when you get the player controller here, you'll have access to setting the control rotation. Otherwise, all you can do is get it. Oh, that's not right there. And when you set the control rotation, you want to be careful that you're not doing too much to it. So what I like to do is you can also get the control rotation. And I'm just going to set everything to what it already is, except for the yaw. And we're going to make the yaw sort of follow the character as it goes side to side. And the way that we can do that is by getting the actual input value of the character from the character movement. And I believe to do this... so the last input vector here, this is going to be based on world space, so we just want to unrotate this. And then this will get, this will be based on the world space, yeah. So we want to make sure, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain how this is working here, but we want to unrotate this vector so that x is fully x and y is fully x rather than being based on the world space. Oh, game development is a lot of work. It takes a lot of hard work, and I mean, there's a lot of people who jump into game development and they just load up the marketplace and they buy a bunch of stuff. And to be honest, it's a great way to learn because then you can kind of pull everything apart. But obviously not everyone has the money for that either. And there's so many great tutorials on YouTube, honestly. A lot of the ones that I follow when I started were in C# and Unity. And I actually just kind of practiced transferring the C# stuff over to blueprints. And it kind of makes you think a little bit as well. And I actually found it a great experience. I don't know if it's still up, but it's like a full RPG tutorial made by a group called like Berg Zerg Arcade. There's like 600 episodes, and yeah, it's all in C#, but it's a really nice watch if you're interested in making like really robust games. Oh, the free stuff is great for sure. Yeah, I like to make sure that I pick that stuff up every month because, like, even if you don't need it now, you never know, you might need it later there, right? Sorry, I kind of forgot what I was doing here. I am still pretty new to this streaming thing, so thanks for jumping in and watching. So when we unrotate this vector here, it's going to transfer the actual world orientation into a more direct orientation. And then we can actually split this here. And we know that everything that's on the Y is actually the, I guess, the weight of the input rather than like the actual direction of the input in world space. And so what you want to do is we can map how much we're moving the control rotation based on how much we are pressing the input. And so if you drag out a map range clamp here and input this value, it's going to go from -1 to 1, I believe. And that actually might just input okay. Give me one moment here. I might not need a map. Oh, you saw my VR tutorial. Awesome, I hope it was helpful. It's a little outdated. I was actually planning on remaking it, but my VR headset kind of crapped out on me, so I have to wait until I get a new one. But yeah, I hope the video is helpful. There's a lot of stuff in there that I would do differently now, but as a bedrock, I mean, I actually paid for an asset to learn how to do that. I think I said in there that I was trying to learn without paying, but I forgot to mention I did. So yeah, all of that information is actually stuff that I've paid for. I really hope it was helpful. That's the great thing about Unreal Engine 5. I find that they break a lot of stuff. Every now and then, there's just these little things that don't work anymore. But... oh, I used the Rift S something? I think it's the base one, I don't know. It worked really well when I bought it, but all of a sudden, like 3 months later, it just kind of started to like flicker, and I thought it was my graphics card, so I bought a new graphics card. And yeah, nothing changed. And then one day I took it off because I was frustrated, and then the next time I put it on, it just constantly started resetting my Guardian like every 10 minutes. So, whatever. Which headset do you use? Hopefully it works better than that. Okay, so we're getting the last input. Oh, that should be set up to the Y, not the Z. Whoopsie. It looks like it's kind of working, but... so what I'm actually going to do instead here is, if I go back to the player character, on the input graph, we're getting the right-left axis there. What I'm actually just going to do is... I should be able to grab that from here. And I'm just going to input that value here. And it's possible that this is just too low. Oh, that's awesome, man. Man, devlogs are so much hard work. Like, I've been trying to make tutorial videos, I guess, as you saw there, and it's a lot more work than I thought. And then I thought about trying to make a devlog as well. I started making this little game kind of like Played Up, and oh my god, you have to record so much stuff, and like it's crazy how much effort goes into like game development content as opposed to like anything else. Like it's kind of mind-blowing, to be honest, but it's really fun. So if it's something that you enjoy, I mean, definitely keep it up, man. You learn so much for sure. It's really interesting stuff. However, there's always times like this where you do something 100 times and then all of a sudden you can't figure out why something works or why something doesn't work, because yeah, I feel like this should be doing something here. Oh, actually I am being really ridiculous. This should be additive. Yeah, I'm new to streaming. My brain is mush right now. I'm trying really hard to make this enjoyable, and I think I'm flopping, but I'm glad you're hanging out with me here, because it's making it fun at least. Yeah, you really need a strong PC for stuff like this. I kind of went overboard when I bought mine. I wish I didn't spend so much money, because I don't think this is necessary, especially since my headset broke anyway. Yeah. Oh, wait, it's extremely new. Do you have a Windows 11? Is that the problem? I've heard that it has a lot of issues with compatibility and stuff. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the green screen's actually been a bit of a project. I tried to use it in one of my new videos, and it works much differently in OBS than it does in Premiere, and it kind of turned out like crap, but it was still fun to do, so. Oh, Windows 10. I wonder why it keeps crashing. Is it maybe... I ended up having to replace my power supply a little bit ago. Like, my computer would keep blue screening every time I tried to do anything that used too much power. I got an 800 watt power supply recently, and it's been holding up pretty good since. Okay, so with this additive here, this should now add to the, yeah, there we go. That was silly. That'll add to the yaw rather than just setting the yaw to the same thing constantly, like I was doing there originally. And there's a little bit of an issue there where it actually works constantly, and I kind of want it to be based on how fast the character is moving as well. So it's sort of like, looks like it interpolates in and out. So on this map here, we can add a multiplier. And then we just want to get the movement speed of the character. And then we can, what is it, divided? I don't know how to do simple math right now, this is funny. Oh, I appreciate it if you've been streaming. It's, yeah, it's really boggling my brain. I kind of feel silly when I'm on camera, but I understand that it's for everyone's entertainment, so hopefully whoever watches it has a good time. I really appreciate the kind words. What sorts of thing are people doing wrong? Definitely would like to avoid that if you've got some tips. Let's see, so we've got our max walk speed and we need to get the current speed as well. Is what I'm messing up here. How am I storing that? I think I've got a... Am I not storing that in a variable? Oh, have I set this to private? Okay, so I set the movement speed to private, and I didn't set up a function to get the information. So I'm just gonna go ahead and set that up here. Yeah, I think too many people use copyrighted music. It kind of seems like almost something that people are proud of, like, oh, look at me, I'm using copyrighted music and my stream's not getting taken down. I'm so good, guys. And I don't remember who it was, but I was watching someone the other day who was reviewing streams, and they were just so upset about the fact that one guy used copyrighted music. And I guess I don't blame him, but... I mean, I feel like I stop talking too much when I'm reading comments, but, and I kind of forget what I'm doing too, but I appreciate that what I'm saying is on point. It doesn't feel that way for sure. This also needs to be pure here. And now I can get the movement info. And I think it's the max divided by the current. And that'll give us from 0 to 1 a multiplier. So now it'll kind of like interpolate into the maximum possible speed and interpolate out, except when I go backwards, it's actually going to do the same thing. So, I don't actually remember how I tackled that problem. Oh, I'm using OBS, and I currently have it in... what is it called here? I'm currently using OBS in studio mode, so that I can, like, have the program up in the preview, so if I need to switch a scene, I can sort of look at it for a second to make sure that I remember which one it is before I open it. But, it's been working pretty well for the last stream, and I tried to stream the other day, but it definitely didn't go very well, so I got rid of that one, but hopefully this is going a little better. Okay, so this is gonna get us... Oh, that's not good. Okay, so I'm doing a little bit of a silly here. This actually needs to get stored in a variable. and it needs to be interpolated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to store this in a variable and call it camera rotation speed. And then rather than setting it directly here, what I'm actually going to do is finterp, and from the camera rotation speeds currently to this. And that can grab the world delta seconds. And I'll set the interp speed to like 0.2. And then it actually will interpolate and not look like it just did. So when I start walking sideways, nothing will happen. Is this too low? I've gone and messed it up again. Streamlabs does look nicer, yeah, but I don't know. I used to, it was a long time ago now, but I used to stream on Twitch doing speedruns for Pokemon Red and Blue. And I used OBS at the time, so like to me it's a little more familiar. But if I was starting today, I probably would be using Streamlabs, yeah. It's a much nicer UI for sure. I wish I practiced more in the day though, because like when you're doing speedruns, you kind of have a set goal and you feel really confident in what you're doing. But right now it's a lot of making stuff live and my brain already feels like spaghetti, and then I mess something up and I forget what I'm doing, and then it's like, oh my god. Hopefully it's entertaining to watch. Sorry that I keep saying that. I kind of wish there was more purple in OBS for sure. Streamlabs has a nicer look too for the whole theme and everything. A lot of gray in OBS. So what is going on here? With the control rotation yaw is adding... I'm just gonna remove the multiplier actually, because now that might be redundant. I actually don't know why this isn't working here. Going from the current to the target. Well, first of all, this isn't the speed. This is actually the current rotation. And as I just explained in my last video, actually using a float for this is really bad. So, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so what we're actually gonna have to do here is I'm gonna need to make this a rotator. So, I'm going to set this up as the auto camera rotation, and this is going to be the rotation value that is used if we're using the auto camera. And I'm just going to throw this in a category called settings, if my keyboard will work. And I'm going to set that to true by default. Editing on a phone. I've never tried that. Is that something that you do with Streamlabs? I just kind of use Premiere Pro because I spent too much money on upgrading my Photoshop package. And I can't really look back now because After Effects is really cool. I don't know what I would do without After Effects. So if we're using the auto camera rotation, this needs to be a sequence, which is going to end with this. Well, it's going to end with setting the control rotation to itself, but using the pitch of the auto rotation. or with using the yaw of the auto rotation. And then, before using the auto rotation, we actually need to R-interp, and this will make sure that the engine actually realizes that we're interpolating a rotator, and it'll actually move it in the smallest direction, rather than whatever direction would be forced by the float. Hopefully that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't really say Adobe things are professional. I feel like a lot of people now use DaVinci Premiere, or DaVinci Resolve, sorry, which I think has a paid version, but it starts off free. I'd probably learn DaVinci if I wasn't so used to it right now, but yeah, it's just really scary. Can I tell you how to learn how to make a game? My track record for the last 30 minutes says no, but if you'd like to stick around and see how I mess this all up, you're more than welcome. If you want to learn how to make a game, I don't know. If you use Unity, Brackeys is pretty good. I've also got, oh, actually, if you're a complete beginner, I do have a couple of beginner tutorials on my channel. You could check those out. I've got one about creating expandable gameplay, which shows how you can use actor components to take simple logic and put that on a component that you can put on any actor and migrate between any project. And it basically saves your time for the rest of your life. Oh, thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate it. I'm still new to all of this, but I'm trying really hard here. Yeah, DaVinci looks extremely complicated. It would be extremely overwhelming for me to learn now. I definitely feel your pain there. Oh, thank you for the like. I really appreciate that as well. Have you worked on any projects at all recently? You said that you are a beginner, but you must have done something. Okay, so we need to interpolate this rotator here. Making shooter games is extremely hard, yeah, I definitely agree. I find it much easier to use third-person animations than to use first-person animations. There's a lot of weird stuff that you have to set up with that. Oh, thanks for hanging out, Killer Rex. I hope you have a good night, and thank you. You don't know what assets to use, actually. I wonder if I still have the name pulled up here. Sorry, I can't find the name right now, but if you do a search for first-person Claymore, I think, on the Unreal Engine Marketplace, there is an amazing set of first-person arms that comes with the Claymore. But if you check out their actual profile, they have a bunch of sets, including a fairly cheap one, which has a bunch of different arms, like some modern clothes and stuff, if that's what you're into, as well as some medieval stuff as well. I think there's a bit more modern. And I also believe they have some stuff for like military stuff that would be pretty good for like little player versus player things. I can't remember the name right now, I'm sorry, but they're really good assets. I've played CSGO, yeah. Um, 5v5, really? What sort of game modes are you creating? So when we interpolate this rotator here, ignore a lot of this now. Actually. Oh, I think I deleted the one I needed. I need to get the move left, right. And So we're just going to want to interpolate this from where the control rotation is to where it should be. And for that, I'm going to recombine, split that. Grab this and split that. Actually, you know what? Whoops. Oh, geez. Recombine this and then we can just break it. Break the rotator. It's extremely hard to find weapons, like CSGO weapons. Yeah, for sure. My best suggestion would be checking out Open Game Art. You're not going to find anything that's animated, but if you are willing to pull it into Blender and mess around with it, you could add bones to the individual pieces, or even just separate the pieces, and then within Unreal Engine you could use the, what do they call it? They have that, I can't remember what the the control rig, yeah. So if you separate the pieces, you could actually use the control rig to do it all within Unreal Engine. The guy's name? Like, which guy? Open Game Art would be just like a website in particular. I don't really have any recommendations. If you mean the guy for the first person assets, I could definitely try and find that for you. It would just take me a minute. I've never actually bought any of them myself. Oh, I'm really losing my voice. I've never actually bought any of their assets myself, but I've seen them and I've used them in collaboration with someone else, and they are very, very good. Oh, give me one moment here. I think I can look it up here. Got my mic in the way of my other monitor here. What do we got? Oh, the name is Hammerhead Studios. I'd have to look it up in a web browser to get you the link, but if you go to the Unreal Marketplace and type in Hammerhead, I think? Yeah, no, that's not going to come up. If you type in first person sword, let me pull it up here. If you type in first person sword, you'll see this one here, the sword and shield first person. Hammerhead. All of this guy's assets, they're really, really good. He's got some third-person stuff, he's got some first-person stuff. Actually, the only first-person ones are this sword and shield. So I apologize, actually there's not going to be anything in here for guns. I must be thinking of other people. But if you are interested in like a longsword or a first-person sword and shield, I do highly recommend these. They work very well. For guns... I think this one is good. Yeah, this guy's got a lot of everything. It's all first person besides this few stuff here. But starting from this grapple hook here, he's got a bunch of things that work in first person. He's got a grapple hook, he's got the wall run, and then up here, he's got a bunch of different guns and stuff that are all compatible with the FPSK if you have it. If you don't, then it's still totally functional on its own. A bunch of different choices, if that's something you're looking for. And they're actually on sale right now, so yeah. Hopefully that's helpful. Not sponsored in any way, but answering your question, I guess. So what was I doing here? I was trying to get the rotator set up. And so it wants to go from the current to where the control rotation is. And so this is going to interpolate the rotator. And then that rotator is going to be applied to the control rotation, rather than setting everything up separately. And I think that's still gonna do nothing, right? I think those last ones that I showed were just hands, unless they do have full body setup. I'm pretty sure it's all first person stuff. Maybe I'm mistaken, I don't know, I just typed in first person, man. I really don't know why this isn't doing it. Oh. Well, you know what? It's because we're not actually changing anything. Right here, we're going to want to add. And we're going to want to add that move left, right. And it's still not doing anything. Oh my god. Doing stuff live is fun. My brain feels like spaghetti, but I think I said this earlier. I do understand that it's for entertainment, so hopefully my failure here is entertaining. I set up a bunch of stuff. I figured there was a few things that I could do on the fly, and my brain is just absolutely mush. So, yeah. Are those full body? Are those full body assets? They looked like just first person to me. Okay, so we got the move left, right. Break the rotator, move it to that. I'm actually really confused. If you see the problem with this, can you let me know? Because, like... Oh man, this is... I feel so dumb right now. What is going on here? Okay, so we're taking the control rotation. We're setting the roll and the pitch. We've got the auto control rotation, which only happens if this is true, and it is true. So I haven't done that. I haven't done that. Did I recommend it? I don't think I recommended a template. Was that a template? I thought those were animations. Or I thought those were assets. My bad. I think they're compatible with the template. I don't know what's going on in either the chat or this project right now. So I'm glad you're having a good time. This is really driving me crazy. Okay, so if use auto rotation is active, we want to set the auto control rotation. Oh my god. Delta time. Interp speed 2. Break. Yaw plus right left into yaw. Use the auto control rotation. I'm trying so hard to do this on the fly. I kind of feel like I should just open up another project and get this sorted, but I don't know. I feel like I can fix this. I've got to be able to fix this. This is the most basic of the most basic. Sometimes just click and play again makes it work. I don't know. It's not right now. So let's see. I'm just going to iterate. No. We're already small enough. Because you don't want to set control rotation. Do I just use this? Do I just use this? No. I believe that should be the end result, actually. Okay, wait. Now it's messing up stuff with my mouse. Which actually does make sense. The mouse should not be enabled. So, yeah, how's it going with you guys? Going pretty good over here. Basically pro-developing over here. Basically. This is, the point of this stream is to answer any questions anyone might have while I'm going along here. So, since this isn't working out, like, at all, if anyone does have any questions about how to make something, I'm more than welcome to, pivot and show that. So just let me know. In the meantime, I'm gonna try and keep fixing this auto rotation that just doesn't seem to want to work. Setting the control rotation to the control rotation. Should it be this? I feel like it should be this. This can't be right. Nope. Are the inputs correct? Left, right. Doesn't work with either the gamepad or the keyboard. This is strange. This is obviously not the best way to do stuff like this, but it's supposed to be an easy way to do it pretty quickly without having to worry about setting up too much. Oh, enjoy your food, man. Hopefully it's tastier than this steamy pile. Yeah, so setting this rotation... Oh my god, my brain is just spaghetti. This is... I've heard that this is definitely a fun thing to do once you get over the embarrassment factor. That's a hard thing to get over because this is pretty embarrassing. But, yeah. Just like I'm trying to teach people how to game dev, I'm learning how to fail streaming. So, we're learning together. Yeah, I don't think I need this. You want to set the current to... Oh, I mean, this really shouldn't matter. I don't think this should matter. Brake rotator. I'd like to add a little bit more commentary to this right now, but clearly I have no idea what I'm doing, so I have no right telling anyone else that what I'm doing is correct. So we're just going to keep messing around here until something works. And again, if anyone does have any questions, I would be very happy to show something else. But for now we've got this, so I'd really like to know why this isn't rotating the camera. The annoying part is it was just working. It was just working and I decided that it needed to be better. So I've gone and changed it, and now the better is broken. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And when it's broke, I don't know. try and fix it. We fixed it last stream, so I feel like the easiest solution here might just be to completely reset this up, because for some reason I am just not getting the results that I want. And rather than trying to fix a pile, I'm just going to clean the pile up and try again. So on the last sequence here, we do want to set the control rotation to the auto control rotation. And on begin play, if we're using the auto control rotation, we actually want to make sure that the auto control rotation starts off being what the control rotation is at the beginning of game, just so that there's no weirdness between where it starts and where it tries to start, if that makes sense. So, and I don't think this is causing any of the problem, but this does need to happen at the beginning as well. And so if we are using the auto control rotation, which is starting true, just to verify, this should be... It will end up being a 3-step process, so I'm just gonna add that here now, but it's only a 2-step process for now. And the first step is to get the yaw working. So I'm actually gonna rename this because it should only be the yaw, which is what I was doing anyway, but, you know. Okay, we're using the world delta seconds. The interp speed is 2. That should be fine, but just for the sake, I'm gonna set it to 20. And I don't know. Grab the roll, grab the pitch, and well, because it's moving between itself, right? So for the roll and the pitch, this should actually just be itself. And then for the yaw, it should be itself plus the move left right, which was just working, but I'm actually just going to make sure that I'm getting a print. Yeah, so that's definitely returning what I thought it was returning. That's good to know. That's not the problem there. So, what I actually just want to do as well is I just want to see what this is returning here. So if I split this, I just want to see what the yaw thinks it is. Oh, and what did I tell you? Sometimes just pulling it apart fixes it. So I don't know what I was doing wrong before, but apparently this works now. However, it's a little slow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and I'm going to get a map range clamp. And from -1 to 1, it's just going to go from 10, or from -10 to 10. And maybe that's a little too fast. I'm going to reduce this back down to 2, and maybe -4 to 4. Oh, was the interp speed the problem? Really? Oh, I see what's happening here. Okay. So the interpolation speed here is controlling how fast the camera is rotating, which should have been a little more obvious to me. So it's actually kind of a bit of a mixture here where this value isn't necessarily, yeah. And if we want to get the actual pickup of the camera interpolated as well, we need to interpolate the move left right variable. So what I'm going to do here is I'm also going to remove this, and I'm going to promote this to a variable. And this is just going to be interpolated as well. And then for this for this interp speed, I'm going to do something like 0.2. And that just means that the camera will start and stop a little slower. And 0.2 is way too slow. Let's do something like 5. Oh, did I not plug this in? And that needs to go into the value. And yeah, there you go. Now you can see that the camera sort of like slows down and starts kind of slow. And that's making sure that the camera actually stays as the character is walking to the side. It will start to spin. And as the character reaches the back there, you can see that it slows down as he's walking towards. And that's pretty much what we want there. Except, I would kind of like to make it so that when you're walking forward into the side is actually the fastest. Sorry, I'd like to make it when you're walking like backward and diagonally, it's the fastest that it's rotating. And then it sort of like quickly tapers off as you're facing forward here, rather than being like consistent. So one way that we can do that here is to actually duplicate this mapped range clamp here. Map range clamped. Hard to pronounce apparently. Right, so what we can do here is we can actually grab this and we can check to see if it's greater than or less than 0. And that's going to be like this. And then from this value here, we can select, or oops, from here we can select and so if the value is greater than 0, we want to go from 0 to 1. That's going to go from 0 to 4. And if the value is less than 0, what we're going to do is we're going to take this here. And I want to know if the value is less than, let's say, negative 0.75. Grab another select float here. And so if the value is less than negative 7.5, we're going to want it to come to basically an immediate stop. So I'm going to map negative 0.7 or negative 0.75. Oops. And I'm going to map to negative 1. And if it's at negative 0.75, it should be going at 1. And by the time it gets to 1, it should be 0. And I don't know if that needs to be negative or positive. Okay, so there's a bit of a problem with the way that I'm doing this here. So we actually need to calculate the sine separately. So I'm going to grab the sine of this here, and then all of these checks are actually just going to be absolute, and then they're going to be multiplied by the sine of the float itself. So we do want to know if it's less than 0 or greater than 0, and we do want to know if it's less than negative 0.75. But other than that, all of this stuff is just going to be absolute, maybe? I can't remember how I did this before. So if it's less than negative 0.75, I just don't remember if the output's supposed to be... Yeah, so I'm gonna make the output absolute here. Just go from 1 to 0. And it's actually gonna go from negative 0.75 to negative 0.9. And that way, when it's in between 9... Okay, actually, no, all of this should be absolute. Need to move this around a bit, but it will be better. So... Okay, basically, we select a float here if we are greater than 0, which we aren't going to need anymore. Huh. Actually, we do. That's the whole point. Okay, so you know what? I'm actually just going to tap out here. I'm not going to worry about this one. I think it's pretty good how we have it here. So I'm not going to mess around with all of that. My brain is too much to deal with that live. Sorry. We're just going to go with a basic little setup here. Going to go from negative 1 to 1 and negative 4 to 4. Still works pretty well. Still giving us a camera. This should be moving a little faster as you walk backwards, but I'm not going to worry about that too much, because we also need the pitch to be automatic as well. So, down here, the control rotation is being set using the auto camera yaw. I'm just going to want to go ahead and set this up as well, specifically for the pitch. And to do that, I'm just going to duplicate this variable over here and call it the pitch. And then let's see how easy it is just to copy and paste all this here. Hi Murray, how are you? Hopefully I pronounced that right. Once we've got this copied over here, it's just going to want to be... Oh, actually none of this needs to be copied. Or used at all. This is going to be the pitch, which means I need to recombine this, which will allow me to change it. For some reason, Unreal Engine 5 doesn't let you to change variables when they are split, and it's kind of annoying, but yeah, what are you gonna do? They actually give you the ability to do it, so it works pretty well when it works. And then for the pitch, this is going to be setting itself to the yaw. And then the pitch is going to need to be based on the direction of the ground that the player is standing on. But for now, I just kind of want to make sure that it's at least a good angle. And I don't know. What is a good angle? Like -5? -20? Not gonna do anything? Oh, well, and then we also have to assign that. So down here, when we set the control rotation, what we can do is, because we are using the pitch as the yaw as the main focus and the pitch is the secondary focus, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add the roll and the yaw from the yaw, and then just add the pitch from the pitch, and that should work okay. And you can see now, yeah, that the pitch is actually starting itself a little higher. Though I kind of wanted that to interpolate upward. And the problem with that right now is our interpolation speed is like 20. I'm actually gonna set, like, this two should be fine. Yeah, there you go. Now that's going to interpolate nicely up, and as we change that later, it's kind of gonna like move slowly up and down rather than jarring, or being jarring. Oh, I think I pronounced your name wrong. I apologize. I've heard you're not supposed to drink pop while you're streaming because it makes your saliva kind of chunky, I guess. But hey, you gotta have some pop every now and then. Oh, we've gone live been 1 hour. It's taken us 1 hour to make the camera rotate around the character. So if you're an aspiring game developer and you'd like to know how long game development takes, not that long at all. It's actually much faster than that usually. But when you're new to live streaming and you feel nervous, stuff can go wrong. So hopefully everyone who's watching is having a good time, and I hope this is somewhat helpful for anyone who is interested. But what I'm going to do now that we've got all of this set up here to actually rotate the pitch, we kind of want to base the pitch based on the orientation of the ground. So let me get a ramp in here. I've just got this set of prototyping assets. I got this for free like 2 years ago. I think it's like $8 or $10 now. It's got a bunch of really good prototyping stuff that I like to use all the time. So I've actually built it into this template just to make sure that I've got a bunch of like all of the assets and a bunch of animations that I like to use already retargeted. We'll be looking at some of the animations as well if I can get to combat. But for now, I'm just going to throw in a ramp here. Ooh. And I'm going to make it a little longer. And basically what I want this to do is as the character walks onto this ramp, I want the pitch to sort of lower so that it seems like the camera is trying to hug itself to the ground. And with like an actual automatic camera, ooh, I found another reason why you don't drink pop while you're streaming. Little gassy now. But the reason for this is if you have an automatic camera, the camera actually can stay leveled with the ground. And I don't want to worry too much about trying to make sure that the camera... Actually, that might be an interesting way to go about it too. Never thought about that previously. But no, the way that we're going to do this is as you go up a slant, it's actually going to bring the camera down. I think that works pretty well. So the way that I'm going to go about doing that here for the pitch is I actually need to do a line trace to figure out the orientation of the ground. And you can figure that out through the ground's normal. So I'm going to do a line trace by channel. And I really want to make sure that I'm hitting the ground with this trace. And so actually, I think the way that I'm going to do that is line trace by object. Oh, can you not line trace by object? Oh, for. It's line trace for object, but everything else is by. So we're going to do a line trace for an object. We're going to get the actor location. That's going to be the start point. And the end point is going to be the actor location plus a Z value, because the Z value is going to be up and down in the world regardless of the character's orientation. It really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to say minus 2000. And for as far as it matters, this will find us the ground. It's kind of having a problem there because it needs to have an array set up. And I'm going to set this to world static. And that way we're going to make sure that the only things that we're touching with this trace is the world static. Otherwise, we don't want this to affect our orientation because the object really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's just going to be a part of the actual gameplay and not a part of what is going to affect what the... I don't know how to describe it, but I'm pretty sure it matters. So, with that set up here, we can check to see whether or not we're actually hitting the ground. And I'm just going to use that there as a selection for this. And so what this is going to do is if we have not found any piece of ground, We're just going to default to using the -20 as our rotation for the auto pitch, just to make sure that it's going to stay at a good level. And if we have found the ground, then we can break this out hit. And what we want to do is we want to get the impact normal, which should be here somewhere. The impact normal. And this is kind of going to give us the direction of the ground in world space. So, and it's going to be between, I believe all the way up is 1 and all the way down is -1. I'm actually just going to confirm that quick. So if I do a print string here, the impact normal, we can break this. Then I'm just going to get the Z. So yeah, I don't know if you can see that on the stream there, but as I'm on the ground here, it's at a solid 1. And then when I go up here, it looks like it's at, I don't know, I can't really see it there, but it's, I actually need to be able to see that. Let's change this color. That doesn't help. That doesn't help one bit. Does an actual print string let you change the font? I don't think so. Can't. Having it. Oh, there we go. That actually does help. So, yeah. When we're down here, it's at a solid 1, and then as we go on here, it's at like 9.95. And as you get to a solid straight up, where the normal is pointing left or right, which would basically just be a wall, I don't know why. Yeah, so basically when you reach the angle of a wall, that would be 0. And then as you go to point down, that would be -1. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure, I believe the player is set up right now so that it can walk up an angle as steep as 60, which means we're looking for at most a 0.4, I think. Unless I'm terrible at math, which I am. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use this normal, and we can use that as a multiplier. So, or not a multiplier, sorry. Do we want to use it? I can't think of words right now. I can just think of nothing. But we're getting stuff done. We're getting stuff done. So we're using -20 if we don't have ground. If we do have ground, we're using 0, which is why right now it's at 0. And what we're going to want to do instead of that, let's see here. We can use this. Map range clamped. And from 1 to 0.4, I want to use -20 to, I don't know, 20. And as we walk up this slope, oh, that actually might not be enough. 60. As we walk up the slope, you should see the camera move down. Let's try doing this to 0.6. Okay, let's throw another slant in here, and I want it to be a little bit of a bigger slant. So I'm going to choose 50 here. Oh. Put this up here. And these assets are nice, but the actual way that they work is a little annoying sometimes. So I'm just going to, this should be fine. And I just wanted to, yeah, that might be a little much. That might be a little much. Let's see what happens if I do this a bit more. I guess it would also be nice to know what we are working with right now for the incline. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm actually going to set that print string up again, just so I can see what the normal is at. I put this back to a dark color. I'm not sure if that works better on stream, but it definitely works better for me. Let's see here. So we 0.95, 0.85, and yeah, the character can walk up that, and that is way too much, and we're still only at 0.73. So 0.6 actually might be a good number there, but 60 is way too much. I set that to 20. And I'm actually going to change the interpolation speed of the pitch maybe to something like 0.8. Might be what I was thinking of earlier. And now you can see that the pitch is just going to kind of slowly move to align with the character. So now that might not be enough. So I'm actually going to go to 40. Maybe... 40 might still be too much. Well, I'm just going to put it to 30 for now, and that's probably fine. And that's kind of how you would adjust the yaw in pitch of your camera. What are we at here? Hour and 20 minutes in? Look at that. Look at that, we got it done. Only had to pull it apart 4 times and take a look at... pretty much assess the entire life situation and try to figure out what is even going on. But we made it to the goal. We made it to one goal. And that is having an Ocarina of Time styled automatic camera. Except right now it only goes up, and we also kind of need it to look down. So maybe I spoke too soon. We are only halfway there. So let's see here. Because yeah, this is going from 1 to 0.6. But what happens now when we're going the other way? There we go. I was trying to duplicate it by rotate. What is going on here? Interesting. That's new. Okay. So that happens now when you scale objects. But let's see what happens when we set these up here. I just want to see what values I'm getting just to be sure. You can see this is going to look up at the character, but then as soon as we go here, it's actually still looking up at the character because the actual what do you call it? The actual normal of the ground really isn't changing. So rather than actually getting the normal of the ground, and I think this is something that would have been good to, yeah. So rather than getting the normal of the ground, we actually need to figure out whether the current distance of the ground at the character is higher or lower in front of the character. And I'm losing my voice again, 1 second. Okay, so what we want to do is we actually want to check the height of the ground at the position of the character, which we're already able to do with this line trace here. So rather than using this normal, I'm actually just going to use the location. You know what? Auto pitch check. So I'm just going to make a function here to do both of these line traces and then just return the values we need. because it'll be a little cleaner here. So I'm going to throw this stuff into a function here. I'm going to set up a sequence. And, oh, got a reroute node there. So this is going to do a trace at the actor's location for world static. Ooh, sorry about that. And once we've done that trace there, we are going to figure out whether we've found anything. And if we have, I'm just going to set up a vector array here. I'm going to call this check locations. I'm going to add an L so that I know it's a local variable. And if this finds... actually, I'm going to remove this sequence. No, I'm going to keep the sequence there. So if this finds anything, then I'm going to add the location that it found. This needs to be a 3-point sequence. Ooh. These reroute nodes can be hard to grab sometimes if your DPI is too large. I'm going to grab another line trace over here. And what we can actually do is use this same location. And then we just want to move it forward in space. So what I'm actually going to do is grab the actor's location. I'm going to add an actor forward vector. And multiply this by rotate vector. Actually, once you've got this here, you can go to the output and you can actually convert this to a float. And you can't do a float times a vector, but you can do a vector times a float. And my bad, it'll actually return a vector, obviously. And so basically you can just multiply. That's, yeah. When you connect that there, it's going to convert it back. So you can do this, but if I do it like this, you can't actually do a float times a vector. Like, that'll give you problems. But you can do a vector times a float. And I don't know why the order matters, but it does. Just so you know. And I'm just going to do something small like 50. So if the player walks really, really close to a ledge, the camera will look down. But they have to be really close to the ledge, otherwise it's not going to matter. So it shouldn't really affect gameplay. And then this just needs to also get this. I'm just going to duplicate it for this. That'll be the start and the end there. Use the same object array. And just to link this to the videos a little bit, if you're not aware, that I actually do have tutorial videos on my channel. Hopefully they're much more helpful than this. Unless you're interested in unless you're interested in learning like the actual process that goes into iterating games very boringly into workable assets, I guess. Unless you're interested in that, I'm sure the videos on my channel will be much more helpful, which are actually going over how to create things. And some of them are pretty short. I've actually got one that talks about creating expandable gameplay, and that expandable gameplay, if you're creating something like this in a component, you could actually just like, if I come over here and I type object types, you can see there's this object type query. If I add that here and then just go object type, I can now go over here, and if I come over here and I go auto pitch check. You can see that the first choice there is world static. And if I drop this down, it's actually got all of the different object types, including one down at the bottom here called interactable, which is actually one that I have set up in this template custom. I come over to collision here. It's an object channel that I've set up. So that enum that you can add to anything here actually keeps up to date with all of the custom object channels that you've added to your game. So it's extremely helpful to know. And if you've stuck along for an hour and a half here, you're welcome. But I'm not going to be using that here. It's not really necessary for this. Instead, we are going to need some return values though, which I'll get into in a moment. But the last thing we need to do here is also check to see if we find anything. And if we do, we also just want to add another location to this array. And once we've got all of that set up here, the final thing that we want to do is we actually just want to check to see whether or not we've actually been successful on both traces. So with this, we can get the length, and we want to know if the length is equal to 2, because we're getting 2 vectors, and if we don't have 2 vectors, then this isn't going to work. So off of the false here, I'm going to do return node. And I want to return a boolean. And then I also want to return 2 vectors for those vectors. I'm just going to call them main trace and forward trace. And if the return is false, then that should mean that nothing moves forward. However, if the return is true, we're going to return true here. And we just want to go and get. And we'll just get 0 and 1 and add those in here. So I should just be able to delete this now. And this will replace that check there. So if we don't have both of our traces, then we're just going to use that -20 default. Otherwise, if we do have both of our traces, we're going to use that as our value now to figure out what the difference should be. So I want to take the main trace and we can break this. And we don't actually care about the x and the y values, we only care about the difference between the z values. And we just need to know really whether the ground is higher or lower. And other than that, it's just basically going to be a scalar. So I'm going to take the main trace and I'm just going to minus, ooh, that's an equals. We're going to do a minus here. And I just want to know what this is actually returning. So really quick, I'm just going to plug this into my print string. And okay, so we can see that that's working here. As the character moves, that is giving us some values. And it is negative, it's positive when it's below and it's negative when it's above, which I believe is right, because when it's negative, we're going to want the camera to drop, I believe. What is, oh right, so it's starting at a value of 0 right now. Wait, this should be -20, shouldn't it? And then these values are not going to be starting at 1, are they? It's going to be starting at 0. And what is the largest value we're going to get here? Something like -45. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so This is going to go from 0 to 45. And I'm actually going to use these. I'm going to go from negative 45 to 45. Going to grab this in here. And then we just kind of want to use the map to decide. Well, no, because we want it to be leveled out at negative 20. And then that means the up and down is going to have to be pretty consistent. What was going on there? I pressed a button on my controller and all of a sudden my rotation wasn't working. That was weird. I don't know what that was. Okay. Alright, so right now this is moving in the wrong direction, which... does that make sense? Let's see, let's change these around here. Yeah, so now as I go up this slant here, the camera is moving down. And then as I go over this here, you're going to see that the camera actually moves up. And maybe the... okay. And you can see now as I start moving toward the camera, it's going to be a problem. So we actually don't want that to be based on the character's rotation. It's going to be based on the character's position, but we actually want the forward vector of the camera. So I am going to get eyes. You can get the actor eyes viewpoint, which if you're using a character that has a controller, it's actually going to be the rotation of the camera. And I'm going to get the forward vector. And then I'm just going to use that as a multiplier instead. I believe that should fix our problem. So now this will go up. And that will go down. If I run towards the camera, you can see it stays down because the camera is facing forward even though the player is facing toward the camera. And you can see as well, if I walk over to the ledge here, as soon as the character gets close enough to the ledge and the camera is because the camera isn't rotated enough here to actually see over the ledge, it's not seeing over the ledge, but as soon as it does, you can see that the camera starts to move. And that's why you want to use the camera rotation instead of the player's rotation. Though I feel like looking up is much stronger than looking down right now. And that might be a bit of a problem. So when the value is going up, it actually needs to go a little larger. And I believe we can fix that over here in the map range clamp. Oh, pull all this together here. So when the value goes up, it needs to go down. That doesn't seem right. What happens if I change this to negative 50? I feel like that's going to do the opposite thing. Let's see here. Oh, no, that actually did it. Okay. So there you go. If we've learned anything here, it's that I don't know anything about game design. But hopefully you're having a good time. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself. And hopefully you are learning something. There's some targeting stuff going on here that we're not utilizing. I think I might look at that next. So we've got the camera working the way we want it, which now perfectly goes back to the fact that the targeting is based on the rotation of the character, not the rotation of the camera, because our automatic camera is a little harder to control than the rotation of our character. So what I want to do is I want to make it so that when we press the L button, it's actually going to focus the camera to face directly where the character is facing. And that might not be immediately obvious because we're controlling the camera over here with automatic movement. But one thing that we can do is you can see that I've got this auto camera rotation yaw, and it's being set to the control rotation up here by default. And we've got the auto camera rotation pitch, which is actually just controlling the pitch. Because if you look down here, I'm using the roll end of the yaw from the auto camera yaw. What we actually want to do here is, okay, so this is storing the position, and we're going to need some sort of target. Alright, so I'm going to set up the input first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new graph here. And might as well make a button for it, why not? It's going to create an action here. I'm going to call it target. I'm going to make that the left shoulder, no, left trigger. And let's see here, if we bring in target. The context-sensitive stuff in Unreal Engine 5 is really not great. Action target. Out of all the things Unreal Engine 5 does right, their context sensitivity is definitely not one of them. But at least it's there, right? I mean, being able to find stuff that's not context sensitive in the context sensitive search is definitely preferable to not being able to find things that should be in the context sensitive search. So, I mean, it's definitely better than the alternative. So what I want to do here is I actually just want to make sure that we know when we're trying to target. So is holding target. And then we can basically just do everything that we need at the same time that we're doing our auto target, or our auto camera rotation. And whether or not we're using the auto camera rotation will just decide whether or not the auto pitch and yaw is moving, but it will always target if we're trying to target. So I'll just quickly set up this boolean here. Then over here on the event graph, let's see here. So we are setting the control rotation, which is actually going to need to happen whether or not we're using the auto control rotation. So I'm going to add a sequence here. And so everything past this point for setting these two rotators will be completely separate from actually setting the control rotation. Which is good, because that means if we're not using the auto rotation, then the control rotation's value is just going to stay the same. And you might not be able to see it, but I'm moving my mouse right now and the camera's not moving, which might not be the preferred solution for your game. But because my game is focused on this auto camera rotation, that is exactly what I want. Even if for some reason some input is set up for the camera, though it shouldn't be, I just have it set up for testing. I don't want the testing camera to work. And that can be toggled just by the way that we control this set control rotation. So basically before we set the control rotation, we want to layer all of the different additive functions that are going to adjust the final rotation that the player is going to see. And typically Unreal Engine does all of that for you, which is really nice and fancy, but it doesn't quite give you the result that Ocarina of Time has, which is kind of what we're going for here. So once we've decided whether or not we're going to do this, and we've removed that unnecessary link on that sequence there, I'm going to go ahead and check whether or not we're holding targeting. Actually, you know what? This could be even easier. Okay, so I'm actually going to use that variable on this chain link rather than storing a separate variable, which is kind of redundant. I'm actually just going to use that for this calculation here. And we don't even need a branch. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag off of here and go make rotator. We can get the yaw and the pitch. Disconnect these, and then we can make a select. And so if the player is holding target, then we just literally don't want the auto camera to work at all, even if we are using it. So I'm going to plug that into the B here. And if we are holding target, instead we're going to want the targeting camera to work. And I did set up this boolean up here just because it was easier at the time, but I hope it's kind of apparent as well that you could do the same thing with this variable in a very complex sort of select rotator weirdness to be able to make everything adjustable. But I'm just going to worry about this for now because we're finally getting somewhere and I don't want to slow it down too much other than drinking water. And you know what? We're finally getting somewhere. My voice is breaking. I'm going to enjoy some Coca-Cola. Okay. So, when we're holding our targeting, we're just going to want the camera to face the rotation of our character. And we can do that by getting our component. And I believe in Ocarina of Time, the rotation is actually set a single time when you hold the button, unless you have a target. So I'm actually going to add that over here. Rather than doing that during the event tick, I'm actually just going to get the rotation. And then store a variable for that here. I'm going to make that the last target rotation. I actually don't think that's descriptive enough. Last targeting rotation. And what we want to do over here, no, that's not what I want. We want to get the control rotation. And we want to set the last targeting rotation to the roll and the pitch of the control rotation. Do we even want the pitch? I think the pitch will be different. So we're going to set the roll to the roll, even though it should be 0. We're going to set the yaw to the yaw of the capsule. And then for the rotation, we actually still might want auto pitch rotation while we're targeting, I think. No, if we don't have a target, this is just going to be a static value. And I'm just going to put it to -20. And then if we go over to the event graph, this should be using the control rotation, so that should be good to go. If I do this, yeah, you can see that kind of snaps and then snaps back to where the auto control rotation is. And so that's kind of half of what we want, but that's what I meant when I said that we need some sort of target. So right now these are like two completely different systems, and they need to be two completely different systems that leverage the same base rotator. So the last thing I'm going to do here to make this work properly is we've got all these interpolations over here. What actually needs to happen is the main rotator needs to be figured out in here. So I'm going to create another rotator just called the auto camera rotation. Final rotation. this is going to be where all of the interpolation happens, and it's going to interpolate between these rotators. And I'm not really sure what a good interpolation speed would be here. I'm just going to go with 2. And this is going to give us the final rotator that the auto camera will use. Which is making me think maybe we actually kind of do want this as part of this Boolean check. So I'm actually going to back pivot on this here. If we're not using auto control rotation, then you want the rotation to be controlled by the mouse. So I'm actually just going to add all of this back into that. Or at least that's how I want it. Oh, missing variables here. Cleaning up blueprints are always so fun. Is always so fun. Okay, so here we've got our auto control or auto camera final rotation here. Here we've got our here. And we want to use that auto camera rotation here. And here we are doing that interpolation, so I think we actually want to remove all of the interpolation from this stuff, because that's just going to be a bit of a mess. But I think it should actually just work for the purpose. So now, when I do that, so now when I target, nothing is going to happen. Let's figure out why that is. So this puts the last targeting rotation to that. Auto camera rotation, auto camera rotation. I feel like I messed up what I messed up that first time, but I actually have no idea what that was. It just kind of worked out when I redid it. And I really don't feel like redoing literally all of this again. So we're going to take a little bit here to try and see if I can fix this, and if I can't, we're actually kind of pushing up 2 hours here, so I don't even think I have time for combat. But I don't know, we'll see what happens here. We'll see what happens here. So is the auto rotation actually... So yeah, the auto rotation isn't even working anymore. Did I change the variable? Use auto is true. So all this stuff should be happening. Oh, yeah, that would be a problem. So that needs to be there. Okay, I see the problem. That's funny. Oh, live streaming. Makes your brain turn into mush. Hope you're enjoying yourself. Hope you're learning something. Okay, so this will put all of our stuff into a sequence here. Now this should work. And so you can see there, when the character is moving, the interpolation there might actually be a little too strong. And actually in Ocarina of Time specifically, there is no interpolation on that type of camera movement, which means it's definitely too strong. So what I'm going to do really quick here is actually just undo all of this unnecessary interpolation that's happening now, because these variables just need to be set to a specific value, which is itself except for the pitch here. So I can just set the pitch. Then up here, oh great, now my headphone is beeping at me. So yeah, I'm unfortunately gonna have to put this stream down after we get this camera rotation going. But the next time I stream, we will definitely be looking at combat and using some of these cool systems that I've got set up to be able to actually create a game rather than focusing on the little bits of logic. But everything takes time. And unfortunately, game development takes a lot of time. So if you take one thing away from my failure of a live stream, it's game development takes a lot of time. If you're interested in game development, there's a lot of fun to be had, there's a lot of excitement, and there's a lot of mistakes, which are learning experiences, and you just gotta roll with it. I'm removing this interpolation. Yeah, so it's itself, except the, actually I need to keep this. I think, yeah, that should be fine. And we just use the pitch from this, so that's all that needs. And yeah, so you can see now that's much faster, and the interpolation is, yeah, that's ridiculous. So, let's see here. Wait, why is that so ridiculous? What if I move this to -1 and 1? I knew this was a mistake earlier. Yeah, I knew that was a mistake earlier, and I didn't know why it wasn't working the way it should. And it's because I was doing it wrong. Now that I'm doing it right, it works the way it should. Alright, so there we go there. Then all I need to do is come down to this interpolation speed, and this needs to be something like 20. Now you can see when you stop walking, it actually stops much quicker. And it doesn't look like the character is still kind of like drifting off. And when I target, it turns around pretty quickly, but it still jumps back. And the reason it's jumping back is because these are two separate variables still. They're just not immediately snapping because it's interpolating between the two variables. So, what we want to do here at the same time as setting the target rotation is we actually also need to set the... what do you call it? These ones. These ones here. And it's kind of annoying having these as two separate rotators. But in all of my experience trying to use the control rotation with stuff like this, it's very, very tricky to set it up with one rotator. I don't understand why. If you know more about quaternion math, you might understand. But for me, I know a lot more about game development and programming than I do about the actual application of programming and math. I know more about the application for games. So I just kind of go off the knowledge I have. And the knowledge I have says sometimes a few more things can make something extremely complicated much easier. Which might not be immediately obvious, but it is the case as long as you understand how all of those smaller things work. And so in this case, with these 2 rotators, we're just going to have to set 2 rotators. I've got them separated here for some reason. We just want to go ahead and set the yaw and the pitch. Oh, that should be splitting that. We're going to want to set the yaw to that. And then the roll and the pitch, or the roll and the yaw, and that needs to be the pitch. Okay. And now, target. It's still doing it. Oh my god. Why? So that sets the auto camera. Oh, you know what? I bet you it's being set back. Yeah, this can't be set here. Because it's just being set back to basically where it was on the next frame. Because all of these are updating any... Oh. Alright, so that can stay there. And right here we're doing the auto pitch and the auto yaw. And they're already kind of on their own separate thing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another sequence. I'm going to drag that to that. And we're going to connect them here. And then before that sequence happens, just want to check to see whether we're holding target. And for anyone who caught the thing that I said earlier about case sensitivity, this might be the one that bugs me the most. It's so weird. So in Unreal Engine 4, if you drag off of here and you type not, the thing that your cursor hovers over is the not boolean. In Unreal Engine 5, it hovers over the not equals. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, but to be able to get the not boolean, you actually have to type not space and then add a B to find the not boolean. That is absolutely the most annoying thing that I have experienced in Unreal Engine 5. And if you haven't noticed it yet, I'm sorry. But it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but clearly they were on vacation and having a drink or two. And not water. So now this should work. This should work. If I target and let go, it's still doing it. Oh no. Why is that happening? Why is that happening? I don't understand. So if you're not holding targeting, it uses these rotators. Those rotators that are currently set to be the targeting rotation. You know what? If I just do this, it's gonna make them both the exact same rotator. Was that execution not set up the whole time? Was that execution pin not plugged in the whole time? Okay, so I hope you caught that. Yeah, so it'll rotate, it'll go to a basic position, which actually doesn't want to be -20 here. Probably 0 works fine. Oh my god, that's so funny. Okay, so when it rotates here, yeah, so some like -5 maybe. Oh my god, great. Why does -20 not work? I wonder what the actual basic value that it's finding there is now. -10, okay. There we go, if it's -10. And then as we walk here, it will start to rotate. Boom, target around. And when we're targeting, we actually don't want the character to rotate. So, what I'm going to do for that... what I'm going to do for that really quick is if I go into my base character, you can see that I've got this update rotation function, which is basically a short version of everything I just set up for the auto camera. You can see here that I'm setting the target rotation to the last input rotation, and that's also being decided whether or not based on the input direction, which is a boolean that I pass in based on a class setting, which I have over here. So if I go to my player character, and I go to the class defaults, under the player character here I've got my locks and my checks. And if I go to base character settings, I've got use input direction, which is currently set to true, which is why the movement is giving me the movement similar to Ocarina of Time here. But if I want that to stop when I'm targeting with the camera, all we have to do is over here. This is probably the easiest way. Just when I set this up here, going to use input direction, I'm going to set it to false, and then set it back to true over here. So, when I'm targeting, now you can see that that's using the animation that I have set up for the 8-way movement. Then as soon as I stop targeting, the character will flip around nice and smooth, because that's how I set up the rotation, which I actually do have 2 tutorials about. I have 2 full tutorials about how to set up character rotation in a way that's extremely expandable, and my hope of creating those 2 videos was that you'll be able to extrapolate upon rotation for other systems. Clearly it hasn't done me very well, because it just took me 2 hours to set up automatic camera rotation using basically the exact same thing. But, yeah. It's there if you want to watch it. It's combined maybe 15 minutes. And it talks about moving the logic into an actor component as well. So, if you're new to game design and you want to know how game systems can be compounded in an effective way, that is definitely a way to go. And this is really fast now. So maybe that should be changed a bit really quick. The pitch and the yaw definitely need to be going at different speeds, which is another good reason to have all of the logic separated. Right now I've kind of combined it all into one, which is why that's happening now. That's, whew, I was about ready to go. Dang. I'll fix that quick, why not? Quick TM. See what happens. Gotta enjoy the small things. So, we've got our auto rotation kinda working here. You can see that it's moving side to side okay. And if I go up here, it's moving up and down, but it's maybe going a little too quick. So we're just gonna see if we can't slow that down a little bit, separate those actions, and I think that might be it for today. I've been going for quite a while, but who knows, this could take a minute, this could take half an hour, this could take an hour and a half. Game development is game development. So, right now we've got our auto pitch and our auto rotation going here when we are not holding our targeting. And the thing is that all of this is being done off of a single interpolation right here. And we kind of want this to be separated for the pitch and the yaw. But the issue with that is then we don't really have any way to interpolate between the targeting and the final rotation over here. So this all works fine for the yaw, we just kind of need to slow down the interpolation for the pitch. So I'm actually going to go back and add in the interpolation for this rotator here as yaw. For this rotator here as well. And it's not going to be the yaw, it's going to be the pitch. We're going to use our R-interp2, and it's going to go from the auto camera rotation's current value to what it already is, except pitch here. So I'm actually going to need to break this value. And these variables shouldn't change otherwise, but you never know. If you ever set anything up for yourself and this is on an actor component, you're going to want to be able to explicitly define all of these things, I guess. Terms, stuff. And this is going to use the world delta seconds, and I want to slow this down. What are we using here? It's using 20. What if I set this to 2? Yeah, so now the pitch there is slowed down. And so now if I go over this hill, it's still a little faster than it was before, but it's not like literally blasting off into space. And if I move the character over here, it does sort of rely on the camera's rotation, so you can see if I look over this ledge this way, it's going to look down to see what you're looking at, but because the camera is currently facing the player, if you go over to the ledge this way, it actually doesn't look down. And if you're interested on how we set that up, been going for about 2.5 hours here, but definitely feel free to look over the VOD. I'm going to be editing it down over the next couple of days. So hopefully it'll be a little more helpful than the giant show of something this has been. I was hoping to kind of show how this targeting works here. You can see that when I hold down the trigger here, it's going to face the character's rotation, but it's not currently targeting onto any of these. And you know what, that actually shouldn't be too hard to set up now that we've already got the targeting rotation here. And I did get myself a piece of chocolate, so you know what, I'm gonna earn it. I'm gonna earn it, and I'm gonna set up this targeting really quick here as well. So we are setting our target rotation when we input, but we're also going to want this to be based on our target itself. Hope the sound is okay. The mic is a little off right now, I think. If I go over to my player here, I've got this component attached to it, the targeting component. This is something that I've designed kind of in my own time that I like to use in different projects. It kind of saves a lot of time. I've got it set up right now so that what do we got here? Yeah, that all looks okay. It's basically set up in a system that uses both the actor's rotation and the camera rotation to figure out what you're targeting. But because I have this set up to sort of mimic Ocarina of Time, which has an automatic targeting system instead of any particular camera-based system, it does favor the actor's rotation over the camera's rotation, which is just the mode that I have set up here. You can see that there's a few, including just distance, which means regardless of which way the actor or the camera is facing, as long as you're inside the distance range, it'll still work. And that's useful for targeting like this, but it's also useful for things like interaction systems, which I actually set up a button for, but we're definitely not going to get to today. But we do want to get the targeting working. So, because I've got that over there, we can get access to that component in the Ocarina of Time character as well. And so what that means over here is when we hit targeting, we just want to get access to our currently selected target. And I think I have that set to be private, so I'm gonna have to fix that here quick. Where is that? I've just got it set up in a folder of systems here. Targeting component. Yeah, so the current target is private, and I don't think I have a getter for it. So I just need to create that here quick. And just returning an actor. Kind of been losing my voice a bit today. And so that's just going to return our current target actor. And I didn't make that pure, did I? Nope. Okay, so once we've got this here, we just want to go ahead and set this to the actor that we're actually targeting. So current target. And then once we are done, we just want to set the current target to nothing. And on the event graph, over here, we're using our last target rotation. And when we start holding the trigger, we're setting the last target rotation to the control rotation with an offset to the yaw, or sorry, with an offset to the pitch. But what we actually want to do is figure out whether or not we have a current target. So I'm going to actually do this first here. Just trying to figure out the best way to make this work. Okay, so all of that is dependent on that. And so the first thing we want to do is set our current target. And we can get our current target, right click and convert it to a we can convert it to a validated get. And if it's not valid, actually, I think it would be easier here. You can drag off and go is valid, and the one with the little green F is just going to return a Boolean. And then, right now these are being fed directly in here. But if I just drag off of here and go make rotator, this can be the roll, this can be the yaw, and the pitch is just going to be -10. And if I recombine these, I can drag off and go select rotator. And then we're just going to choose the rotator depending on whether or not we have a target. So if we don't have a target, we're going to use this default rotation here. And if we do have a target, we want to figure out where the target is. So let's see here. What's the best way to do this with the control rotation? Let's see. Find the look at rotation. It's a vector, doesn't it? Yeah, so get actor location. We want to look from us to the target. That's going to find us our yaw. And our pitch can still just be -10 for now, and the roll needs to be 0. And this is just going to set what the rotation is looking at the second you press the button, but while you're holding the button, obviously the character is going to be moving side to side, and we're kind of going to need to update this based on multiple things in the game. So I'm just going to make sure this works here quick. If I go like this, you can see the character's kind of facing sort of forward. But yeah, when you hold the trigger, it faces directly at the actual target. So I'm going to do this and then face to the left there. So you can see I should sort of be looking away from the target, but it does focus to the right on the target. But that's going to need to update. So actually, you know what? We're probably going to want to store this in a function. Find target direction. And this is just going to return a rotator giving the target direction. And actually, I'm just going to make the return value a Boolean, I think. No. I was going to return whether or not there's a target as well, but that might be a little too much for this. I'm just going to return an actual rotator here. I just need to quickly figure out where the logic is. So we're mainly going to use this for the yaw, but I'm going to leave the pitch there just because it's nice to have a default in case we need to access it, and it saves us from having to figure out what it is later. I'm going to make sure that this one's a pure this time. And over here, we can just use this now. And then on the event graph, over here, we're just doing a selection to see whether or not we are holding target. But similar up here to the way that we are updating our auto rotation using this, we have our is holding target. So if we're not holding target, it's going to actually update the auto rotation. However, if we are holding target, we want it to update the target rotation, which will be the last targeting rotation, I believe is what we're using there. And there's actually a modifier that we're going to need to add to this. This might get a little messy, but it should be okay. Let's see here. You know what? I'm just going to right click on all of this stuff here and go collapse to nodes. And then this right here is just going to be update auto pitch and yaw. And this will be a little cleaner over here. Save a little bit of time on that. Okay. So now we want to update our auto targeting rotation. And we only want to do this if we are actually holding target, which I've gone and put in here. So if we are not holding target, it will update the auto pitch and yaw. And if we are holding target, we are going to update the target rotation. And we can do that by getting that function that we created here. And this is just going to be an exact value, but we still have the interpolation happening over here. However, it's pretty quick. Let's just give that a test here. Yeah, so you can see that's pretty much instantaneous, which is exactly how Ocarina of Time functions. And you can see there that the icon is kind of moving between the targets. Yeah, so in the input graph here, AC targeting component, set current. I have a lock set up for this, don't I? Did I not make a function for it? Why did I not make functions for things? Okay. There should be a lock function on this. Not Boolean, still a big pain. Okay. That's going to be the lock function. That should be a utility. Then if we come over here, we can grab this and lock it. And when we let go of the button, before we set it to nothing, we're just going to go ahead and unlock it. Or before we set the current target to... Oh, this doesn't matter, does it? We'll do it first anyway. If you were setting the actual component to nothing, you would definitely have to do this first. I'm just going to go ahead and unlock that. And now once I've chosen the target, that is not going to get updated until I let go. And then it will choose the next best target. Oh, what is happening there? Oh, okay. Interesting. Access none, trying to read current target. I should have actually read that. Okay, one second. There's an actual problem I have to fix here, but I need to see what that error is too. If it's gonna give it to me again. Dang it, I should have read that. Oh, it's because it doesn't have a current target. Okay, so right over here, this is setting the current target, but it's possible that it doesn't have one. So we only want to run this logic to find the target direction if it has a current target. And if it doesn't have a current target, then it's just going to return the default. Which will just be the last target rotation. And there's one more problem that's going on there. When you first target, it's setting the pitch and the yaw here, but then as soon as you stop targeting, these have never been updated again. So as soon as it switches from not targeting, or as soon as it switches from targeting to not targeting, those values are just going to go right back to where they were, and that still needs to get updated. So, where did that go here? So, typically you would want the auto pitch and the auto, like this would be a slightly more complicated set of events that actually contain this logic as well. I'm just trying to cut corners here for the sake of the stream, and it's actually making things more complicated, which is really funny. I hope anyone who's able to watch back on this learns anything, or has a good time. If you do one of those two things, that's good enough for me. I hope my embarrassment is giving people some sort of enjoyment. Or that you're learning something new. This should have an execution out as well. If we call it then, it'll just not have a name, which is something I like to do. And we just need to update the values that are in here as well. So here we're just setting it to the last target rotation, so I believe we can get away with doing that on the event graph as well. And we'll see what happens. Okay, so move it around, pick a target, turn the other way, and there you go. Look at that. Center's back on the character from where it started. Okay. So that has been setting up an automatic camera in Unreal Engine 5, and even incorporating it with a targeting system if you've got one or feel like creating one. I do have tutorials on my channel for how to make a few things in Unreal Engine, including expandable gameplay and all of the rotation logic that I've done for this character, which is actually everything in here. I talk about how to add it to a actor component and how you can use that for other systems in your game, such as different like trigger regions that will control the character's rotation. And I don't mention it in the video, but you can also expose those variables to cinematics. And then during cinematics and cutscenes, you can actually use this system as well, rather than relying on setting a variable in the cinematic specifically, so that your characters will actually rotate and move perfectly with everything that you've done with your animations without having to make any sort of edge case weirdness things. And yeah, it actually works pretty nice. I set up a video recently where I tried to use this green screen, and it's working nice here, but in the video it kind of turned out like crap. The video is great anyway, it's a good watch. It basically goes over all of the camera logic that I did here, but rather than doing targeting, it's how to make a death sequence, similar to the death sequence in Ocarina of Time. And actually, you know, maybe I can pull that up here quick, because it's kind of cool. Which one is that here? I'm just going to add that in here, the final result. Can't remember what I put that in. Actually, you know what? I think I archived the project, so I can't do that. Apologies. But I promise you it's a great watch. If you can get over the fact that the green screen kind of looks like poo-poo. But yeah, that has been automatic cameras in Unreal Engine 5 using the basic spring arm camera setup. Everything's pretty fluid. You can add any kind of interpolation in any amounts of layers. And the next time I come up live here, I'm going to be working on setting up combat using the weapons that I have available. We're going to be making an item system pretty much from scratch. It's going to go over using data tables. And of course, all of this is depending on whether or not my brain functions during a live stream. I can prepare endlessly, but then as soon as I turn on this camera, it's just like, and everything shuts off. But yeah, this has been fun. Hopefully you learned something. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching the VOD if you have. And I hope you have a great night. I wasn't prepared to press a button on my OBS, so oh. The gameplay is playing here, so my mouse is locked. Okay, yeah, so that's the end of this. This is... Live streaming is fun, guys. If you're into anything, I kind of recommend it, because it's pretty cool. You learn a lot, you really do. Okay, have a nice night.